our first event of 2021 is going to be about emotional health and wellness, particularly in trying to find a safe space for your emotional health. So, some of our learning objectives that we like to highlight in each session is really understanding what it means about destigmatizing emotional health and opening conversations about mental health within our community. Following that, we'll have an inspiring panel by some of our Safe Space Youth Action Board members. They'll be sharing their short film, Quarantine Diaries, that you see on the right-hand side, as well as a panel Q&A about their experiences of mental health during COVID-19. And finally, as participants, we hope that you'll be able to get a better understanding of how to balance mental health during these times.
Right now, we're going to be going straight into our Kahoot. So with our learning objectives in mind,
so our first question is going to be a true or false. So this statement says that children don't experience mental health problems. What do you guys think? Is this true or false? Yeah, this is definitely false. Children do experience mental health problems, which is part of the reason why we are here today to talk about it. Around half of mental health disorders do show up before a person turns 14. So that's something to keep in mind to open conversations about it. Okay, our next question is also going to be a true or false. So, less than 20% of children and adolescents with diagnosable mental health problems receive the treatment they need. So, less than 20% of children, do they receive the treatment they need? Is this true or false? Yeah, this is true. And it's pretty starking because a lot of children do need help. However, they don't, reach out for help or they don't feel comfortable asking for help. And the purpose of trying to open conversations is really trying to get the help that everyone needs. Okay, we have another true or false here. So, 1 in 5 adults experience mental health issues in America. Is this true or false? Yeah, sadly, this is true as well. 1 in 5 adults experience mental health issues in America. I believe it's around 44 million adults that experience mental health issues every given year. Okay, another true or false. So, mental health problems are caused by personality weakness and character flaws. Is this a true or false statement? Yes, you guys are very quick on that one. Mental health problems are not caused by personality weakness and character flaws. They can be anything from family trauma to biological dispositions to our environment. So it's really not an inherent quality and it's not a weakness for sure. Okay, our fifth question is going to be a quiz, so 4 options. What are some factors that could contribute to mental health problems? We have pressure to succeed, coping skills, heavy social media use, or is it all of the above? Yep, you guys are very good at this. Some of the factors that contribute to mental health are all of these. Pressure to succeed, we see this commonly in academic areas in high school and college, trying to get that, type A level of grades. Maladaptive coping skills this is something that we can work on to attain professional help and see how we can, improve our strategies when we're faced with issues. heavy social media use, something very common in our youth community, mindless scrolling or just getting bombarded with a lot of information definitely contributes to some of our mental health problems. Okay. Our sixth question is another true or false. So during COVID, youth ages 11 to 17 are more likely to score symptoms of anxiety and depression. So, do youth 11 to 17 score greater in anxiety and depression compared to other populations? Yep. So during COVID, ages 11 to 17 have been statistically shown to have greater scores for anxiety and depression compared to other age groups. So this platform is really to tailor these skills to this age group, and hopefully we can try to help in coping skills and reaching out to professionals. Okay, and then our last question for today is going to be, what are ways to improve your mental health? So we have professional health, sleep, staying physically active, or is it all of the above? Yes, exactly. So improving our mental health really ties back to wellness. Even though that's such a vague term, wellness really encompasses a lot. It's professional health, it's about sleep and lifestyle factors, it's about fitness, nutrition. All of these things can contribute to a positive mental health. Okay, so before we wrap up, we're just going to check our leader scores. Not sure who A is, but congratulations, A. Okay.
So now we'd officially like to introduce our partners at Safe Space. So feel free to take it away.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie Kim. I'm the Managing Director of Safe Space. Aditya and Kavan, thank you so much for the invitation for us to be a part of your 2021 webinar series. What a fun segue into our section. That Cahoots quiz was very fun and informative. And I think that it's going to just really lead to good conversation. We have our youth action board members here with us today. We have Reza, Novak, Mira, and Samina. They are going to screen the short film called Quarantine Diaries that highlights the pandemic in our youth experience and from our perspective.
So welcome everyone to the Quarantine Diary, I guess to your session, but also to watch us present our Quarantine Diaries short film. My name is Reza. I'm a junior at Menlo Atherton. Maybe we can go around the panelists and just introduce ourselves if we want to do that first.
My name is Novak.
My name's Samina.
I'm Mira.
First of all, thank you guys so much for taking the time to participate and look at our short film. We're really excited about it, and we really feel like it encapsulates so much of the work we do at Safe Space. So just for a little context, Safe Space is a youth-driven organization with an initiative-based model, meaning we operate kind of initiative to initiative. We've got 60 plus student volunteers from over 20 schools on the peninsula. And our students were the ones that came up with the idea for this film. And we decided to produce this film because originally we were in the process of producing, getting ready to produce other short films when the pandemic hit. And we really just wanted to, after like reflecting a little bit on the films that we were trying to create, we realized that we just wanted to create something that was relevant to the youth voice right now. And so many of us were, talking about shared experiences and how difficult the pandemic has been, especially when it comes to mental health and dealing with mental health issues. And so we felt like this would be a way just to remind people that they're not alone in the struggle. We're all going through this together, and, you are seen and you are heard by the other youth.
So before we show the video, we just wanted to let you know that there's a trigger warning. There is mention of isolation, depression, loneliness, and insecurities. So if you feel like you have to leave the screen, that's totally fine. And then as a quick reminder, just to take care of yourself and seek support, because that's always valid.
So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and watch the film? Just to give a little like personal thing about the film, I really think it was like a really rewarding experience for me to be featured in it. I know that Mira is also featured in the film, but I think for all SYAB or Safe Space Youth Action Board members, it was like a really rewarding experience just because it was like a platform for us to share our experience and our voices, just like four of us, five of us, I'm not sure how many exactly, but so I think it was really great to be involved in it, and I just think I hope you enjoy it as much as we do.
Okay, just testing to make sure it's not gonna fall down.
I don't really know how to like sum up my quarantine experience. It hasn't been like distinctly one thing.
With all this extra time, on one end, it's been so relaxing and so liberating, but also it makes me think about my depression and my insecurities.
I never realized like how much I needed my friends until like I just really couldn't see them anymore in person. And the hardest part is just being okay with being alone.
Being isolated and like not having everyday interactions with my teachers and with other students has been really hard.
I think when I'm around people and I'm around friends, it's easier to kind of get by without thinking about like what makes you deserving of having a bad day or having a day off, when I really don't have that issue when I'm around other people.
People give me energy, and if I'm not able to have a conversation, socialize with people, I am literally not going to be myself.
I enjoyed being by myself, and I always considered myself an introvert. Maybe I still am, but what I have realized and learned over quarantine is that the best 1 or 2 hours of my week are when I get to go and see my friends on the weekend, actually see other people. And so I think maybe what we're all realizing is that we need and thrive on human interaction a little more than we thought.
I think when I wake up, I have a lot of like unrealistic goals, to be honest. I'm just really hard when every day is the same. We're going through the motions, but I feel like I'm not getting anywhere.
Everything I do in this room. I've been that person who stayed up till 1 a.m. to finish an assignment, even though once I reach a certain point, I'm literally just staring at an empty page and not being productive.
Even when the world seems to be slowing down, sometimes inside your head, things just keep speeding up. And I think one of the best coping mechanisms is just to stop.
Taking a breath, just relaxing, being in the moment. Don't think about the future, don't think about the past.
Something that's really been motivating and like keeps me going throughout this strange and new time has been the fact that we're all in this together. Like it's not one person or one community, it's the whole world.
I think it's also important to reach out to people around you, because chances are that what you're going through, what you're feeling, is pretty similar to what they're feeling.
Okay, we're going to get through this.
For the past couple months, I have learned how to run miles at a time. I've learned how to speak French. I've learned how to do these things that I wouldn't have time for during the normal school year.
Back in March, you told me we'd still be going in October, we'd still be in quarantine. I wouldn't have believed you, and I wouldn't have believed in myself. I wouldn't have believed that I would make it. But I've discovered coping strategies, and I've met new friends and like reconnected with old ones. And I really realized like what it's gonna take to get through this, and I do believe that I will now. The biggest thing that I've just learned is that we're all a lot tougher than we think we are. And we're all capable of surviving this together.
So why don't we do just a quick round of introductions before we get started with our questions?
So my name is Reza, and like I said, I'm a junior at MA, and I really joined Safe Space because, I joined it when I was going through a really tough time in my life. I was a freshman in high school, and I was really struggling with my mental health, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. I was trying to talk to my family, and I was really afraid. Um, and I really joined because I needed some support, and I didn't know that this was going to be the kind of support I was going to get from youth. I was so used to doctors and adults and people kind of just telling me what to do, and not any kind of like peer-to-peer support. So I really joined because um, I needed a support system that was like more tailored for me.
Hi everyone, I'm Samina, and I joined Safe Space early in high school just because I felt like at my school there was zero conversation about emotional struggle and feeling like, I don't know, feeling like you have to keep up with like a very competitive environment that is Silicon Valley. And so I joined this like motivated body of like student leaders at schools, and I just felt really inspired to not only make change in my school community, but also in the local community. And so at the end of the day, the reason why I'm still a part of Safe Space is the people. You meet like incredible people, including the panelists who are with me today. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Mira. I'm a junior at Menlo. Um, I joined Safe Space when I was having a really tough time with my mental health, and I joined actually so that I wanted to help other people with their mental health, but it turns out that Safe Space and just the members and Annie helped me more. So that was awesome, both to be able to join Safe Space and help other people and reduce overall stigma of mental health, but also get support that I needed as well.
My name is Novak. I'm a senior at Crystal Springs, and I joined Safe Space my freshman year at the recommendation of a friend of mine who I had met in the psychiatric ward of a hospital. And it was just a really great like opportunity for me to meet other people who kind of understood what it felt like to be young and struggling, I guess. And I think, you know, echoing what Samina has said and what Mira has said, like the Safe Space is more than anything like a community, you know, and that's why I think we're so powerful is we spread community and we spread kind of the love that we have for each other into the community. Um, but, you know, so much of what we do is just so powerful because it's led by youth who are passionate and who have experienced the things that they're advocating for and stuff like that. The question we've got is, what strategies do you use to help parents understand the importance of mental health when there may be cultural barriers?
Yeah, I can like start off by, I'm not sure if like I have like a concrete answer, but my initial thought when I heard that question was growing up in an immigrant household, I think it was really hard to talk about my mental health, especially because I was scared that my parents and like my grandparents wouldn't understand like the validity of mental health and mental illnesses. And so I think making sure that your parents or your loved ones understand that all pain is valid, I feel like that's something that I live by. um, I think that's like the first start because I think it's really easy to view a mental illness or an emotional struggle as like not as worthy as having a physical illness, um, which just is not the case. And so I would say that's one barrier to break down initially. I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to add to that.
I add to that. I also grew up in an immigrant family, so my family is from Iran, and I would say my dad, my entire family are more of a conservative family when it comes to mental health and things that are more not controversial, but like things that are more up in the air, I guess, like when it comes to that country and there. And so it was, I think some strategies that really worked for my family was just like really being honest with them, being like, I'm not like, I just want to be honest with you. This is how I feel. Like, I need help. I'm not trying to like do something. Like, I'm not trying to just like be dramatic or like things that they thought was going on. So I just was honest with them and said, like, I need help. I'm not making it up. Just please, like, let's work on it together. So yeah, just like working together and finding a way to, um, to figure it out all as a family instead of individually and struggling by yourself.
I can also add to that. My parents are also immigrants, but something that helped for me is when they grew up, they didn't really talk about mental health. It wasn't really a topic that they knew much about, so they didn't know how to approach me with that when I was having struggles. So something that really helps is just exposing them to what mental health is. Actually, the way my mom learned was going to a Safe Space video presentation where they showed like 3 Safe Space videos, and my mom came home and she talked to me about it, and she learned a little bit more about mental health, specifically about teenagers. So I think it's really important that your parents also get exposed to what mental health is and how it affects you, because a lot of times they won't know.
And I think just to add on to Mira, I feel like when you hear someone say like, oh, like educate your parents on mental health, I feel like that can be pretty daunting just because there's so much to cover. But I think something that Safe Space has taught me is even asking like your child or asking someone else, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling? Like just checking in. That's something that I've like kind of integrated into my family, like just at family dinners, instead of asking like, did you do this? Did you do that? It's more like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I think that's a great first step in approaching mental health and approaching emotional wellness. Yeah, and I learned that from Safe Space. So
Yeah, I'll just also like Mira mentioned a video of that we have at Safe Space that I don't know, Annie, if you want to find the link or something, but we have like a really great video about dealing with or mental health conversation, intergenerational mental health conversations. That is my personal favorite video we've ever made, that I feel like really addresses these kinds of topics. And in terms of like my own experience, my mom is an immigrant as well. And I think one thing that kind of like came out of us having conversations around mental health is her realizing that maybe she had some mental health struggles that she had never really gotten to like acknowledge to herself. And I think just kind of like, you know, recognizing that your parents probably are also struggling, and that this conversation, you know, their fear and their anger around the validity of your mental health probably comes from the fact that they never really got to address their own. And so it's been a learning process for us both. And I think that has been a really helpful reminder in like grounding myself when we have conversations that don't go the way that I want them to, or, you know, when we have differences of opinion on mental health, just remembering that she's struggling too, and she doesn't have the same resources that I do have. So.
That was a really good point. And I think you're right. It's not always just about destigmatizing. It's also about suppression and about addressing that suppression. And I think that was a really good point, especially when having these types of conversations with immigrant families, or, you know, that there's a lot of different things you need to navigate. So I'd like to like shift the conversation back a little bit more to the film. So, you know, we saw how it was focused about how the teenage experience was different completely throughout the pandemic. So what were some of the ways that the pandemic had a positive and negative effects on your own mental health? Like how, like I wanted to get that, I want to go a little bit more of like a deep dive into how it affected each one of our panelists a little bit more. I think your experiences would be very beneficial to hear shared.
For me, I mean, kind of echoing what like Samina was talking about a little bit before, like the pressure of the Bay Area and all of that. And, you know, being at kind of a school that demands a lot out of you. Before the pandemic, I had never really like made time for my mental health. So with a pandemic and suddenly having like all this time to do nothing but like sit in my room and think about like how I was feeling, it was really overwhelming for me. But I think ultimately it kind of gave way to me recognizing that like the lifestyle I was leading was not a sustainable lifestyle. The kind of like constant push of like, you know, having such a busy life and being so constantly like bombarded by expectations and things to do and assignments and deadlines and stuff, and having all of that removed kind of like allowed me to see what was going on underneath. And so for me, the pandemic has really been, I've taken it as kind of an opportunity to address some of the things that I never really had time for before. So, you know, luckily, I mean, I have the resources to do that, but I, you know, started seeing a psychiatrist and I got on medications and kind of started that process of recovery that I was always pushing off before. And so it's been extremely difficult and, you know, at times overwhelming and really painful to have to confront to myself that I was not as healthy as I thought I was. But in general, I think it has been kind of a good wake up call that, you know, you can't distract yourself forever from what you're really feeling.
I consider myself a very independent person. I love my friends, but I really enjoy like the time that I have to myself to like recharge and stuff like that. So when quarantine first hit back in March, um, I was kind of happy to have that time alone. I was really burnt out by school and stuff like that. So that first month or two was really just nice for me. And then after that, when I realized that it's going to last a lot longer than 1 or 2 months, it started to get really hard. I wasn't seeing my friends anymore. It was just really isolating. And for me personally, it's really hard for me to reach out to others to both ask for help, but also just like admit how I'm feeling. I'm not very good at talking about how I truly feel. So that was really hard because I think that when you're in person and you're seeing other people and you're seeing your friends, you can tell how they're feeling by just how they talk and how kind of they're holding themselves. You can see if someone's upset or not. And online, you can't do that. Through social media, you can't do that. So that was really hard. And it took only like a few months ago did I actually start like reaching out to other people and saying like, I'm not doing okay. Like, can we check in? Can I talk to you about how I'm feeling? So I would say that really helped me. Just it's hard to take the first step, but it's also sometimes it's always good to take the first step and to admit both to yourself how you're feeling, but also admit to the people that you care about and your friends and adults how you're feeling so that you can talk it through.
Yeah, I think when quarantine first hit in March, I was also a bit relieved because I was overwhelmed and I was going through stuff that I don't know, it was really hard for me and I didn't know how to deal with it, especially being in school and having, so much to do outside of school, just being overwhelmed. And I think what quarantine taught me is that so the first month or two I was kind of relieved. I'm like, I can catch up, I can kind of think about me and like do things that would help me. But I think after the first month, I really began to decline and thinking like, when will this end? I can't see anyone. I feel like I'm trapped. I'm trapped in this house. And I wasn't like uncomfortable, but it just felt like I was stuck. And there was nothing to do about it. You couldn't go out. You couldn't see anyone. It would just felt like there was nothing to do, and there was nothing to do. But I think what I learned from this is that like I'm not invincible. Like I can't just lie about how I'm feeling to myself and be like I'm fine, and push it down until I'm not fine because I don't want to get there again. I don't want to get to a place where I'm not fine like so badly that I can't tell anyone how I'm feeling. So I just kind of what I do now is I kind of like express how I'm feeling to myself. I'm like, if you don't feel well or you feel this, like you have to ask for help. And it's really hard. Like Mira said, the first step is the hardest, but it also is the most beneficial. And it can really do so much for someone to just say, I need help and reach out. And it is really hard, but I mean, we have to do it. Like, and we all need help. It's not just like me who is struggling with this needs help. We all need help at some point, whether it's for mental health or it's for academics or it's something. It's just a good like thing to a habit to get into is asking for help because it's really helpful.
I can share after that. It's kind of mine's again like similar to what everyone else has been saying, but I think before March, I felt like I was on autopilot, just like school, sports, sleeps, homework, school, just every single day. And I felt like there wasn't really like I felt very robotic. Like I didn't feel like a person, if that makes sense. And so I think when the quarantine hit, I slowed down and I thought to myself, like, what do I like to do? What gives me purpose? What makes me feel like a person, like what gives me that like lively energy? And so that's not to say that it hasn't been a hard year. Like, obviously it is really hard to stay isolated. I don't know, stay connected to loved ones. That is very difficult. But I think for me, like it allowed me to slow down and focus on what I'm really passionate about. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, I think to reiterate, just the idea of being trapped, but also being honest with your feelings and try to alleviate them in any way is very beneficial. So talking about, your experiences, can you also elaborate on some of the more practical ways that you coped with this, rather than, uh, expressing that you are feeling these feelings? How did you actually cope with it?
I think there's kind of two like aspects to it. The first is like your support network and developing your support network. And the second is like actually finding like physical, tangible things that you can do for yourself. And I think those physical, tangible things are different for everyone, but developing your support network will help you find those. So like for me, some of my like physical, tangible things are like mainly like distraction techniques, like or grounding techniques. So I'll do things like take a cold shower if I'm feeling bad, or play Minecraft, or, you know, like I really like wire wrapping jewelry. It like, you know, random stuff that like is kind of specific to me, but like keeps me in my senses and kind of keeps me like physically here and physically present in the moment. Um, but I think the like most important thing that has helped me, that has been tangible steps that I've taken, have been just developing my support network. And so, you know, I'm lucky in that I have the resources to access therapy. And, you know, there are different ways to do that for different people at different like levels of means. But having a therapist and having someone who like I check in with weekly to just kind of make sure that I'm actually like figuring out, or I'm continuously moving forward and developing my skills and strategies, has been really helpful. I mentioned medication, and you know, that's something that is an individual choice, but for me, that has been super helpful as well. Finding medications that work for me and that like, you know, get me lay the foundation so that I can more easily apply the skills that I'm learning and the skills that I'm developing. And then like journaling and introspection that, you know, allows me to kind of process my own thoughts the way I would in therapy, but on my own, has been super helpful. And it's like a hard thing to pick up, but like definitely I feel so much better after journaling when I'm in, you know, when I'm really not feeling well. And then also just being more open and honest with my friends and family, not feeling like I have to pretend to like, you know, always be on my top game or whatever, but just kind of like creating space to have like real conversations with family members and friends, even if it's hard or even if I don't feel like I'm fully being understood. You know, just having those respectful conversations kind of does the same thing as journaling, where you're forced to kind of think about yourself and think about how you phrase or how you can verbalize what you're feeling. And that is kind of a really good technique for figuring out then how to manage those feelings. So
that was I feel like I learned a lot from that. Thank you, Novak. I felt like for me, I really used quarantine to rebuild my relationship with exercise and movement. I don't even like to say exercise because I feel like that's associated with like diet talk, but like more movement, and intuitive movement. And so I felt like at the beginning of quarantine, I like worked out because I felt like I had to, like I had sports, but like I was kind of just going through the motions, like wasn't fun. And so when you're home all day, like the one thing that I tried to do was like get outside, like go on hikes with like my sister. My sister and I would go on like weekly, like Sunday morning hikes. That was like our tradition. I would do yoga. Like I don't know, like my grandpa would come over and the two of us would do yoga, like socially distant, like random things like that. It's been fun. And so I feel like exercise and movement has really allowed me to stay positive and stay optimistic. And it's also like brought me closer to my loved ones. Yeah, I would say that's probably like my top thing.
I would agree with what Samina said a lot with like just like I guess yeah. So my sister came home from college and I don't always see her that often, and I think what was really great for quarantine was bonding with her again and just like being able to do things with her that I haven't been able to do. Like she taught me a lot of things that I don't know, she like taught me study skills. She taught me how to do things that like I wouldn't have motivation to do myself, especially not in quarantine. But also just catching up with myself and like, you know, getting caught up. Like I think therapy meds are for me at least like a great resource for me. But I think there's also a point where I need to like catch up and like be like what's gonna help me besides that? Like what can I do? So I run or I sing or I, you know, play with my dog. Like something that would actually distract me or keep me motivated. Something that like when I wake up I have some kind of goal that's not super unrealistic or something that would keep me wanting to keep going versus like feeling like I'm down and I don't want to do anything and just stay in bed, because there are going to be those days and I have had those days. But it's important to just remember that like we're not alone in this and that we need to find those skills that are those habits and coping mechanisms that will keep us going individually, whatever that is for you.
For me, it was something that really helped me is opening up to others versus bottling up what I'm feeling. So I reached out to one of my best friends, and we check in every week. So we hop on FaceTime and we just tell each other about how our week went and how we're feeling. And I think it's really important when you're having conversations to be honest. So instead of just saying, "How was your week?" It was good, but how was your week? Like how was it actually? Like what were the good parts? What were the bad parts? Like just being honest with the other person so you can help each other and you can help yourself. And then also, like Novak said, finding the little things that make you happy, just to have some time to yourself to recharge. So this past week was really hard for me. I made banana bread yesterday, which really helped. On Sundays, just to get ready for the week, I always do like an hour of just like skincare. So I'm gonna do a face mask tonight while I do my nails before school this week. So just little things that kind of relax you and help you kind of cope.
Looking at the Q&A, like the questions in the Q&A thing, we've got like two that I think we really should, or I really want to talk about at least. First of all, just talking more about Safe Space and like how someone could join Safe Space. And then second, suggestions on how to break the barriers between teenagers and parents. So I'll really quickly touch on the second one, and then you guys can, take it wherever you want. But I think like the number one thing for me in terms of like conversations with like between parents and kids is just vulnerability, and like allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because I think especially when kids are dealing with like difficult mental health issues, oftentimes they're scared of judgment and they're scared of how the parent will react, and it's a scary thing to try and open up to someone, and especially someone who you hold in some sort of high esteem, and I think for a parent to be vulnerable about their experiences and kind of vulnerable about what they're really feeling, because the parents are scared too, and oftentimes that can manifest in ways of like anger or confusion or whatever, but I think just like making space for that vulnerability and trying to really understand, first of all, what you're feeling, whether that's fear or anger or anything else, and understand why. I think that like makes the conversation so much easier, and just having the strength to say like, I'm scared for you and I don't know what to do as a parent, or as a teenager, saying like, I'm scared about how you're going to react to this thing. So I'm not sure, I don't know how to tell you, or I don't know how to open up to you. Just having like laying that out, I think is like so useful and kind of creates like a good basis of mutual respect and mutual vulnerability that all the conversations from there can be built on.
All right. So I'm as someone who's really interested in film. I'm actually part of a film club here on campus, and I just really enjoyed the logistics of the video that you did. So tell me about that experience. What motivated your participation in that video? What were some things that were you like, I want to do this because I think this is important? What were some of the thoughts that were going through your head while filming and creating this fantastic presentation for us?
For me, it was really rewarding and really helpful to film this, because I learned from other people about their experiences, and I learned that I wasn't alone in my experience. We were all maybe feeling different things, but we were all going through the same thing, and it was all affecting us in similar ways. So it was really helpful for me to record that. It was also just a really fun experience just to spend time with other Safe Space members, get to know them. I made new friends that I didn't have. So I really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, I also had a really good experience with the video. I think the reason I really wanted to join was because, I think I think everyone's experience with quarantine is unique. So I think it's not like fair to say that these 4 or 5 kids that are in the video is like representing all teens in quarantine. So I really just joined to like share my story and tell people like how it's been for me and how I kind of get through it every day, because we're still going through it, and like it hasn't ended, and we just have to keep going. And I share my story just so people can know that there are ways that we can cope with this, and there are ways that we can get through this together, not alone, and not just by, thinking of like being stuck in our rooms and thinking about what's happening because there are other ways to get through it, and I just have to find that support.
And we've also got a question in the chat about Safe Space, and like a little bit more about the organization and how someone could join. So I can start, and then Samina, you can jump in as you would like. But essentially what the organization does is very dependent on kind of what the teens in the organization feel is important. We've done a ton of different stuff in the past. We've done a lot of these kinds of panels. We work with a lot of community groups, so like the Boys and Girls Club. We've worked with local church groups in San Mateo. We've worked with, I think, a bunch of different, or like a ton of different schools. And both high schools and some middle schools, or involvement in some middle schools as well. Like teaching lessons, talking about safe space, and talking about like what mental health is and how to support friends or yourself if you're dealing with mental health issues. And, just in general, I think like the work that we do, our main goal is to end mental health stigma and spread mental health awareness in our communities. And so we do that in whatever way we think is most relevant. And then in terms of how someone can get involved, we have our website, which we just redid, Safe Space. I'm pretty sure it's just safespace.org, right? And so on there's a page with a link to our application. But if you know someone who is interested or you're interested, you can also email Annie. And I don't know, Annie, if you want to put your email address somewhere. But we are always open to like any teenager who is interested in getting involved. And we're a really great community. So I recommend it.
No, I think Novak did a great job of summing up Safe Space and how to get involved. But I just wanted to add that I think a really cool aspect of Safe Space is it's what you make out of it. You can really decide like how much you want to be involved in the organization and what projects you want to work on. And people have so many resources and so many ideas to help you make it happen. So I almost think of it sometimes as like a big, what's the word? Like a think tank almost, of like, how can we like start the conversation on mental health, because it's just like a lot of really motivated student leaders from around the community who are willing to help you because they care about starting the mental health conversation in your school as much as they do about theirs, which I think is another really cool aspect of the organization.
Another question, I'm kind of backtracking to the film process and all of that. Someone mentioned about just staying connected and even making more friends throughout the film. Can you talk a little bit about how you were connected with people around you, even with social distancing? What outlets did you use to, talk to people or just connect with different circles?
For this video, for filming, we I think there were like 4 of us filming with distance, completely safe at the location. So that's actually how I made friends through the direct filming process. But through this whole quarantine, I've been trying to expand my social circle by just like inviting my friends and maybe people I don't know so well on Zoom calls. So I think that helps if you want to reach out to more people. I think that's always a good thing. Just Zoom is really easy. You can just hop on the weekend with some of your friends and play some games or just talk about anything. So that's how I made more friends through this whole quarantine experience.
Yeah, I'd echo that. And just, in terms of like Safe Space specifically, we have, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been 100% virtual. So all of our meetings have been over Zoom. And that's just been like a really great way for me to get to know people and continue to like stay in contact with people. It's something I really look forward to, like these meetings that we have, or these meetings that I go to like twice a week, and just like getting to have that like specific time to like check in with people and kind of talk about, what's going on before we get into the actual like meeting material. And then within Safe Space, we've been doing like a ton of kind of like fun activities as well. So we've had like a book club going on. We've been working on a project called the Legacy Project, where people have been like passing on like a little sketchbook that is going to go into a museum in New York as well as like a digital record so that everyone can kind of see like teens' experiences or teens' like visual representations of their experiences with mental health. And then we also did like a Spread the Rainbow project at the beginning of quarantine, where we had people like create like rainbows out of different like materials and mediums, and send them in, and then like kind of with the idea of like spreading positivity and hope throughout like a difficult time. And so for me, at least, like Safe Space and like just like the volunteer work that we do and the meetings that we have has been such an incredible way for me to stay connected to people, even if I'm like struggling to like reach out to my friends or, you know, because sometimes that's hard. But just having these regular meetings has been like incredibly nice for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think during quarantine, I think friend-wise, I had a great experience, especially through Safe Space, just because I don't know, I like to think that I'm a social person, but I can't really show it. I don't know if that's like a thing, but so I met a lot of my friends through Safe Space from the start, but quarantine really made me like develop them, and it allowed me to have the time to, FaceTime with them or catch up with them. So I met some of my best friends even until today that I met over quarantine. We bonded so much through this, just because like we're all going through it together, and we're all confused and we're all worried, but like we're also all together. So that's kind of where I met my friends, through Safe Space, and just in general, that's a lot of my friends come from here, which is really nice because we're all kind of like-minded individuals who like are here for the same reason, to remove the stigma around mental health.
You know, just a general, what is your main message of hope, or just a takeaway message about mental health, about stigma, or about your journey during COVID?
I think like for me, something that the message that I always try to remind myself is just like, I don't know if it's really a message, but kind of the ideology that I keep is just like kindness, kindness to others, but especially kindness to myself. Because, you know, I mean, life is ultimately just hard oftentimes. And, you know, there's no way to, I mean, you can't really invalidate or discredit like how difficult it can be sometimes. But, you know, I think just keeping like a message of kindness towards others and myself, like remembering that life is hard for other people too. And therefore, you know, the best thing I can do as a member of a community, as a member of society, is just be kind to other people and try and make it a little easier for them. And, you know, in the exact same way, just be kind to myself and like recognize, you know, I'm going to have good days and bad days. And as long as I'm kind to myself throughout all of it, I know that I'm going to be okay. And I know that I'm going to be I'm my number one ally and my number one supporter. And so, you know, just remembering to be proud of myself for everything that I do. And even when what I do is not much, you know, still just being proud and being nice.
I completely agree with what Novak said. It's so hard going after Novak because he has such great ideas, and I always feel like I have to match up to it. But yeah, I guess when I initially heard that question, I thought back to my senior quote, which I chose a couple weeks ago. And I chose the quote, "Go where you feel most alive." And I feel like that's been really symbolic of my experience in quarantine, just like finding every day, like filling every day with some sort of purpose, even if that means just like waking up in the morning, or I don't know, yeah, doing a random act of kindness, just finding things that you can do that make you feel like a person, like make you feel like a human being. I feel like it's been really helpful for me throughout this pandemic.
Yeah, I would agree with Novak and Samina said. Just like, I think my message of hope is just like find the tiny victories in your day and your month and in your, like just find them, find goals, find things that you can achieve, even if they're not, like Novak said, they're not that big. Just find something that will make you feel like happy and you'll feel content, and that will, sorry, I'm a little distracted. That will make you feel like there's a reason to get out of bed. There's a reason to do this and that. There's a reason to get on Zoom school. Like Zoom school sucks. But like we have to do it. And I mean, yeah, we do have to do it if we want to get through this. And like it does suck, and it's gonna suck for a while. But like we got to do it, and we got to find ways to get through it together. So just find those tiny victories.
For me, something that's helped not just through quarantine, but kind of my entire mental health journey, just the thing that I try to remember is just that I'm not alone. I think it's really easy when you're feeling bad to think that no one else is going to understand how I'm feeling. No one else has ever felt how I'm feeling, but that's not true. There are a lot of people who, even if they don't feel exactly how you're feeling, they can relate in some way. So I think that for me, it's just really important to reach out to other people. I've said it before, but I'm just reiterating it because I think it's really important to reach out to other people and just to remember that you're not alone, and that when those dark thoughts come, instead of kind of just being on your own and kind of just being really down, just interacting with other people to kind of lift you up.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing. I think, especially based on personal experience, these conversations of mental health don't happen for a lot of people until later in their life. Especially right now when I'm at my university, so many people are just figuring it out, taking advantage of resources like our counseling center or having open discussions about it. So it's really inspiring for me to see such young people, at least in your shoes in high school, already having these conversations about it, destigmatizing it, and working to move forward where having these conversations about our emotional health won't be so stigmatized. And I think you're all doing a fantastic job doing so. So just want to acknowledge that and say that you're all really inspiring. And I hope you continue doing this in all aspects of your life with everyone you meet. It's so important.
So yeah, we just like to thank everyone for attending and all of our members for attending as well.